makes a person of interest. Coach Michael Burt cuts to the chase, interviewing some of the biggest names in the world. How do they think? What makes them tick? What are their thought processes? And how they became a person of interest.
Hi, this is Coach Michael Burt, the super coach, and every single month I like to spend time with very talented people. Many years ago, I wrote a book called Person of Interest, which is how you become a must-have versus a nice-to-have in the world. And I love interviewing interesting people. They're doing interesting things. They're creating interesting movements. And today's podcast is no different. I am privileged to spend some time with Rock Thomas, who is in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, while I'm in cloudy Tennessee. So, Rock, thank you for joining the podcast today. I look forward to some great conversation.
Hey, I'm jazzed to be here. Thank you.
Now, looking at your bio, I'm going to come back to this Goldcast that many people watched. You've impacted over 100 million lives, host of the top-rated I Am Movement podcast. I was just a guest on that show. You're a best-selling author, motivational speaker. I love your background. You and I are tough, gritty. We have a lot in common there, right? Humble beginnings, small Canadian farm. I remember working on a farm for a week at my grandmother's house, and she paid us 50 cents. And that was good training.
Yes.
But you became a self-made millionaire. And here's an interesting part that I didn't know till I was reading your bio. You ran several successful businesses and 6 award-winning Remax franchises. And I did not know that. So I want to come back and talk about what you learned there, because we've coached a lot of real estate people around the country. After achieving all this success, you embarked on a quest for personal growth. I'm going to be asking you what you personally learned from some of the people: Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, Deepak Chopra, John Gray. I mean, it goes on and on. Jack Canfield, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and my hero, Dr. Stephen Covey. So you absorbed, I'm sure, a lot during this period, which has made you into what you are, which is what we're going to talk about today. So let's start with some of this early conditioning, because the people you've been scripted by, I'm familiar with all of those, but you've been scripted in a different way than me. I was such a disciple of Covey's whole person theory, those things. You've had more access to Robbins, some of those people, and I can tell that in your verbiage and how you package up your thought processes. But let's talk early life. What did the early conditioning, being raised on the farm, was it tough? We get up at this time, we work this hard. Like talk a little bit about that.
Make it happen no matter what.
Yes.
Animals need to be fed. Doesn't matter whether there's snow, sleet, rain, you're tired, you're sick, you don't feel like it. I learned that you will always have another level to yourself. And when you are put in a situation that demands that, you get to discover it. You get to appreciate it. Now, I'm not talking concentration camp type of adversity like Viktor Frankl, but I am talking about a new level that the average person never sees, in my opinion, because we live in a soft world today. I was blessed that I got to see that part. And today, when I'm an entrepreneur, I don't think, oh, can I do this? I think, how will I do this? When will I do this? What do I need to do this? And it's done already in my mind.
Yeah.
It's just a question of what will be the journey to get there. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts, and maybe people that go through the military or go through a sports team experience something similar. It's not over till the buzzer rings type thing. But for me, I consider myself an incredibly, MacGyver, resourceful kind of person. And that's what I got from growing up on a farm.
Now, this is interesting because I'm coaching people every day now, and many companies, and typically through webinar right now. And I'm trying to get the managers excited, and I'm trying to get my own team excited. And I was thinking about this early conditioning. When you have adversity, which I believe is an unwanted outcome or a departure away from the ideal scene, talk about how people who have not had that early conditioning like you, like I love the concept that the animals need to be fed, and it doesn't matter, right? Like that's a strong concept, because the normal worker out there, right? I mean, 67% of the United States workers say that they're disengaged with their work. They're at a willing compliance level. They're doing just enough to get by. Many will use this virus that we're going through as an excuse not to work. So because of their conditioning is so weak. So talk a little bit about the importance of that conditioning during adverse times.
Yeah, great question. I think that what people look at is they look for Their amygdala is helping them, by the way, the part of the brain that wants them to not experience any pain or discomfort. So they're looking for that all the time. They don't, I believe, appreciate the fact that it's in the adversity, it's in the growth, it's in the overcoming the obstacle that you grow, that you become more, that you discover something you didn't know about yourself. So I've programmed myself to not to seek out unnecessary adversity. There was probably a time when I did that, but to embrace it, to prepare for it, to be ready for it. If I hit a golf shot into the woods, I don't go, oh my God, that's terrible. I go, I wonder how that's lying. I go into curiosity. How will I be able to hit this shot to recover? What's the best thing I can do at this time? How do I use this so that down the road when I'm in a competition, I'm actually using this and preparing for the future? And I think most people that I notice when I talk to them, I say, oh, hey, let's do this. They go, yeah, but how are we going to do that? We don't have enough time. They go into the how stops them, and they become blocked and they become discouraged, instead of winners and leaders become excited when the obstacles appear, because they know other people are going to get discouraged and they are going to own it and they're going to get rewarded for it.
That's right. It's when they win. You know, as a basketball coach, we used to create artificial adversity. And it appears to me that you believe in experiential learning. Like you go places, you do things together, right? Like it's an experience. And you know, we used to create artificial adversity for our basketball players when I was a high school coach, meaning we created unwanted outcomes, unwanted experiences, and forced them to critically think their way out of it. What happens when you can't depend on me? What happens when we're down by 3 points? What happens when this happens? What happens if our best player gets hurt? So talk a little bit about that experiential learning and how that's critical to what you're doing, because I do think we need more of that versus just classroom style teaching. We need to experience things together.
I was 23 in Asia, lost my traveler's checks, called up my father, and he hung up on me and said, you got yourself there, you'll get yourself home. Now that's experiential learning in the field. And I went out that evening with 3 of my buddies who've been trying to coerce me to become a model, but I had an inner narrative saying you're ugly and that I didn't qualify for the position they were suggesting. And circumstances changed. The best player went down, the resources weren't there, and I was forced now to play a part I wasn't prepared for. But the choice was starve or apply for a job as a model. I did. I got hired instantly. I got a job the next day, and I got a paycheck within the next day. And I started to realize that I had a negative image of myself that others didn't agree with. I went on to teach Japanese people how to speak English. I got paid $5 an hour, and I saved up enough money in the next 6 weeks to buy a ticket and fly home. And so when you talk about experiential learning, I've done arrow breaking on my throat, walking on fire. We've done, breaking a cinder block on your chest, lying on a bed of nails. We do all of these things as a way to get the mind and body to go, gosh, if I could do that, what else could I do that I didn't think I could do? Because as you know, there's 3 levels of learning. There's the intellectual. That's where people go, I know I should do that, but they don't. There's the emotional, where they're like, they feel guilty or they feel bad that they didn't make the extra call or didn't work out or what have you. And then there's the physical. And I had a physical event when my father died of cancer, where I really started to embrace 3 things: physical activity, paying attention to proper nutrition, and responding to events in a more upbeat, playful way to keep the acid out of my body, because negativity and stress creates acid. Acid creates cancer cells. And I didn't want to go the same route my father did, is die of colon cancer. So the event happened, and you know this as well as I do from Stephen Covey and other teachers: event, stimulus, pause, respond. And I just chose to make health and energy a priority. And that's one of the reasons Tony Robbins became one of my mentors, is because he probably has more energy than any human I know. Right. And for the first time in 42 years, he canceled an event because of the coronavirus, not because of him. Imagine 42 years doing events, sometimes as many as 250 in a year, never, ever canceling. That's like somebody going to work and saying, I was never sick, ever, for one day for 42 years.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive. So I think it's a good thing to model somebody like that.
Absolutely. That's incredibly impressive. And I want to come back. We're going to come back in just a second to what you learned from Tony Robbins. When were you first exposed to personal development?
So I was right around the time that my father died. It was in my late 20s. And I got really serious about it. I grew up without a TV, so I did a lot of reading, but we didn't have a lot of personal development books. We had classics like Jane Eyre and things like that. So I learned through literature and things like that and stories of the classics. I became interested and I went to some of these seminars like Tom Wu, How to Become Rich. And I was looking for a way. I joined Amway at the age of 17, and they had, you know, personal development woven into their seminars. But it was the late 20s. I started listening to Tony Robbins in the car. And then by 2000, I went to one of his events. But I was in sales, so we went to conventions, and I heard from a lot of the other people, and it tickled me a little bit. But 2000 is when I got hardcore.
Why do you think people struggle to make a decision to invest money in themselves?
I don't think they've been explained that after formal education, that there's a whole other force of education called getting to know yourself, understand your wounds and your addictions and your drive or your lack of drive. I don't think that they realize that it's kind of like some people don't go to church. Some people go regularly and some people don't go. And the people that don't go, they don't know what they're missing. Right. Some people don't do personal development. Some people don't work out. Like, it amazes me. Some people don't exercise. I'm like, God, I couldn't even imagine that.
Right.
So I just think it's a world they don't know the benefits to.
I like that. You know, we're doing an event. I had an event here that we had to push back just a little bit with Sharon Lecter and Tim Story. And, you know, I told my sales team, go after people that have never been to a personal development event. Right? Don't think you got to go after all the people who indicate interest, leads, you know, people that would generate, people that follow me on Instagram or whatever. I mean, I'm literally pick up the phone and call somebody needs it. I call my own mother. I call my brother. I call my aunts. I got 2 aunts that need it bad. And I'm like, you know, and what you just said, just explained it to them. Like this event's going to be good for you. Just trust me. Just come. Yeah. Right? Just get here.
There's another part to it is that, you know, the biggest fear we have is that we're not enough and that we are not lovable. And so the suggestion of personal development plants the seed that there's something wrong with you. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that. They don't want to go there. They don't want to visit with that. They'd rather just distract themselves with entertainment than do the work that's required, the courageous work that's required to work on yourself.
Now, let's go back to something you said earlier. I'm taking some notes here. When you didn't believe that you were handsome enough or good looking enough to be that model, where was that seed? Where was that seed planted in your life?
So I grew up the youngest of 7. My parents divorced, remarried. So it was a jumble of stepbrothers, adopted kids, et cetera. It was, you know, one flew over the cuckoo's nest just about, but I was the youngest one. So I was always fighting for attention. I was trying to find a way to be seen, always trying to get the scrap of food. I got the leftover clothes, et cetera. So by default, I never felt really very important. But just to make things worse, my older brother, one of them especially, picked on me a lot and bullied me a lot. And he liked to call me pizza face because I had some acne at the time. Okay. And he was very good at joking and ridiculing and exposing me. And I walked downstairs and goes, "Oh, look at the nice zit on your face. Rock's got a new zit on his face. Look, right on his nose," or whatever. And I felt so much shame around exposing myself. And every day I'd wake up, I'd look in the mirror, and sometimes I'd tell my mom I was sick. I couldn't go to school, had a tummy ache because I was afraid to go out and have people see the new blemishes. And this inner narrative continued my even late into my 20s until I met a better programmer that provoked out of me the image of somebody I could relate to, which became Clint Eastwood. And then provoked out of me a phrase that I could relate to called ruggedly handsome. and had me install Ruggedly Handsome instead of the pizza face that I kept on telling myself every time I woke up in the morning and looked at my face. I go, oh my God, you got an ugly pizza face. And I changed it to, you're ruggedly handsome. I have scars on my face from all the acne. I'm not Tom Cruise,
Right.
Pretty boy. You've got beautiful skin, but I've got definite, results of having had acne. So the ruggedly handsome I could relate to. And I just kept on saying that over and over and over and over again until I was able to identify with it and have it become my new identity.
Nice. Do you think that prompted you to want to go seek out the personal development? Did it prompt you to say,
oh my God, it was the catalyst.
Okay.
It was the aha moment. It was like, oh my God, I've been working hard my whole life. What if I was working smart?
Right.
I've been working with my hands. What if I worked with my head? I've been working with brute sweat and with 2x4s and goats and taxi driver and long hours as a flight attendant. What if I used my brain instead? So I had a great mentor that kept on telling me I could do all of those things. And that led me into real estate. And I was terrible to begin with, but he coached me and he got me from 1 sale to 32 to 45 to 65 to 99. Then I bought the company and I took it from 300 million in sales to over $1 billion in sales in 4 years, 270 salespeople, broke every record, was making $1.3 million a year, and then retired to Florida in 2006, sold it for $4 million, wrote a book, spent 2 years on the golf course with my son, trying to have his dream of become a professional golfer come true.
Yeah.
So it was the catalyst. It was the beginning. And I transformed and have so many iterations of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what causes me to want to seek out people and go, hey, did you know?
What did you learn? And that's what you just said is a fascinating story. What did you learn when you had those Remax franchises? What did you learn about human nature? Because we've coached a lot of real estate people in my lifetime by default. I did not go after the real estate world. It's just when I started coaching,
right?
It was during the recession. So big home builders brought me on. And so I learned the real estate game, but I didn't go after that market. What did you learn by owning those franchises?
Well, I think you learn a lot. You learn a lot about human nature. One thing is, people that are self-employed are they're very resilient. They're a little bit like the farm boy part of me is they find a way to make it happen. They can work long hours. Mm-hmm. They are also by generally very poor business people.
Yeah.
They're artists and salespeople, but they have no plan. They have no process. They have no business vision. They're terrible with managing money. A lot of them go bankrupt. They generally don't even own real estate themselves. There's a top 10 or 15% that are outstanding and they're really, really great at all of the things I just said they weren't great at, but the majority of them need so much help figuring their life out. I think they end up in real estate because they couldn't find a place that worked for them in corporate America or in running their own business because they weren't disciplined enough.
Yes.
So they're a bit of like herding cats. It's a very challenging field to work in. But if you do it properly and provide the structure like I did, you can have a thriving community.
Did you feel like you were placing your destiny in other people's hands because your income was dependent on the people producing or showing up? And, it's just an interesting, one of my philosophies is never place your destiny in another person's hands. Never allow another person to stand between you and your destiny. And did you feel that way?
I like to help people. So I looked at it as a partnership.
Yes.
And of the 270 people I had, I knew every single one independently. I knew their children. I knew their life. I knew what was going on. If I walked down the hallway, I would know that person's at $43,800. This person's at $86,000. I was obsessed to serve.
Yep.
And in that gave me my certainty. It didn't matter. You were going to be around me, just like I'm sure with you, Coach Burt. You're around me, your life gets better.
Yep.
Period.
That's good. That's good. Now, when you traveled the world and partnered with people, talk a little bit about that. Did you study under these people? Did you work with these people? What did you learn during that period of time? What did you learn from some of these people?
Yeah, typically what I did is if I really liked the teaching of somebody, then I volunteered to work for them.
Hmm.
So T. Harv Eker I worked with for a while, and Tony Robbins I worked with for a while, and some of the events, Jack Canfield or whatever, you just volunteer, work at the back of the room, what have you. You get a
Yep.
little closer to their inner circle. You
Yes.
get some exposure to them if you're courageous and willing to ask. Jack Canfield mentored me on my first book just because I asked him.
Yep.
And so with Tony, it was just, start by volunteering and then hang around long enough. Eventually they start to pay you. They're like,
Yep.
okay, you're still here. You're at another event. I did 19 events in 19 months. And,
Wow.
I just became really knowledgeable because of the repetition of showing up at these events. And I'm a big believer of practicing at home what you learn.
Yep.
I think there's four major steps to becoming a master. Number one is the information. Number two is the repetition of that information. It's not the book you read, it's the book you reread.
Right.
And repetition can be also teaching. When I learn something, I try to run out and teach it. So I might learn a concept, I might get a thought, and I'll tell it at dinner, or tell a friend, or tell somebody that I'm hanging out with. What do you think of this? I learned this. And so I can marinate in it, and I can repeat it and practice it. And the final thing is to have a peer group that's going to hold you accountable to the standard you set for yourself. So if you just took a goal setting course, well, then share it with other people, talk to people about it, and now set goals and have people hold you accountable to that outcome with a consequence for you not achieving it that's more painful than you achieving it. And with those four steps is how I drove myself to really absorb the information and want to just hang out in those environments.
So what was the big takeaway? 19 events, 19 months with Tony Robbins. What's the top 2 or 3 takeaways you took away from being that close to Tony Robbins?
Your inner narrative is basically everything. For 24 hours a day, you're talking to yourself.
Yes.
So if you don't consciously look at the words you're using and upgrade them, and be kind to yourself and be enthusiastic with yourself and challenging to yourself, then you're not going to advance, because your inner conversation creates your outer activity. And so I really became, again, I'll use the golfing metaphor. I'm standing over a putt and I'm going, you're such a great putter, Rock. You're so relaxed. You breathe through the putt. The hole looks so big and it's so easy for you and it's fun and it feels good. Versus other people will step up and they'll say things like, oh my God, this is a difficult putt. And I never get the pace right. And I can't even read it properly. I don't know, does it go left or right? They're filling themselves with doubt. And
Right.
I'm doing the opposite. I'm filling myself with confidence. So
Right.
that's number one that I got from Tony. Number two is who you surround yourself with.
Yep.
Constantly seek out people that are on higher ground, that can inspire you, you can learn from, and also have some people you can teach as well. You don't want to always be the dumbest person in the room or the slowest person, but often you want to be there because then you're going to be stimulated to grow. So I started Masterminds 8 years ago for that very reason.
Yep. And when you get into, some of your philosophies, boosting your wealth mindset, blueprint for freedom, would you consider yourself a life coach, business coach, or life and business?
I think probably both.
Okay.
I think the life part comes up even if you were just, I've coached people, they're like, oh, I want to just increase my sales. And as soon as we get into it, we start talking about problems they have at home and different things because that's affecting how they show up in their business. So I think the two go hand in hand. I can shift gears between them, very easily. And obviously because I've been an entrepreneur, I can relate to people and we can talk about financial statements and plans and business arrangements and so on and so forth. But the reality is it comes down to those things. What's their inner narrative conversation? What's their past programming that they need to upgrade? And how are they going to create a vision for their future that they can grow into every day? And then the obstacles appear and we deal with them one at a time.
So when you think about it, what would you tell people right now during this period of time, during this crisis, during this external threat? What would be your counsel and advice to them? Because I'm coaching a lot of people.
Yep.
I know what my personal beliefs are during any period of adversity. What would you tell them?
Yeah, great question. I would say that, first of all, take stock of how you're responding.
Yeah.
Come outside of yourself and just look at how you're responding. Are you watching the news all the time and getting freaked out and worried? Are you running to get toilet paper and doing all those sorts of things? Or are you looking at that and going, most of that is actually ridiculous?
Right.
So where are you at on the continuum responding to the information that's out there? And then get the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, be healthy, stay in your rituals and routines, be intelligent, do the things the doctors are saying, keep your hands clean. And, on the golf course, we're doing elbow high fives and, we're adjusting and staying 6 feet from people, etc. So be intelligent and do that. And then what I do is I say new information, new decision, new information, new decision. So as all the new information comes in, rather than look at it and be like, oh my God, overwhelmed, go, oh, new information, new decision.
Yeah.
And that way it's not wrong or good or bad. It's just new information. It's kind of like we talk about in coaching feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback is just, it's useful. Without the feedback, you're working with limited information. The more feedback you get, the more perspectives you get, the easier it is to make a decision. And that's all I'm doing today. I'm closing one of my offices. It's time to do that now.
Yep.
I'm doing a virtual summit on the weekend instead of an event I was supposed to be doing in Mexico. Yep. So we just keep adjusting, course correcting all the time, and I'm totally fine with that.
Now, you mentioned golf. I'm assuming that's a favorite hobby of yours. At this point of your life, or do you work every day? Do you believe in how do you go about your days? I'm an old basketball coach, and it was so ingrained in me. We come in early, we come in at 6:30 in the morning, we stay to midnight, and then I became an entrepreneur, and a lot of my mindset is still that way. I'm not saying that's right. How do you approach your work now?
Well, keep in mind, I grew up on a farm, so I am a morning person. I was up at 4 a.m. this morning. I have a little kind of ritual I do around some mantras and stuff while I prepare to go to my yoga class. Okay. And I go to hot yoga at 5:30, probably 5 days a week. And I go later in the day with my lady on the other days. This is the 62nd day in a row. I'm currently on a little 75-day competition or little challenge for myself.
Yep.
But typically, exercise early in the morning. And then because I'm on the West Coast, the East Coast is up already. By the time I get back to my desk, it's already mid-morning. So I like to work for 2 or 3 hours, get on some calls, answer some questions, respond to things in my email. And then generally the rest of the day I have off.
Yep.
So I typically would go golfing in the afternoon. I like to swim.
Yep.
I would say that I move my body between, on average, 4 to 6 hours a day.
Okay.
And that's pretty stable, whether I'm on holidays or whether I'm, in that kind of work mode. For me, I don't work per se. I get to do things like this.
Right.
If somebody calls this work, well then, okay, I work. But I have 35 streams of income. I have multiple businesses. And generally I meet with my leadership team and I meet with the people that are guiding the different enterprises I have. I try to support them, give them resources, and get out of their way, quite frankly, because they do a better job than I do.
Yeah.
And look for the next opportunity. I'm starting a few new businesses. I'm starting one in solar. And I'm that kind of an entrepreneur where I look for operators that are good, but not yet great.
Nice.
And so if they're doing 1 million, we want to take them to 100 million in sales. We did that with student housing. He was at 8 million. He's at 120 million now. We're working with a guy in solar that is about the same. We believe it has the same potential. I work with storage, self-storage containers, and a lot of investors, because a lot of people don't know where to invest. And because I know so many successful entrepreneurs, I can help them get 10 or 15% return that's secure, which is better than what most people are getting at the bank. So I'm a little bit involved in that as well. And that's usually just conversations and calls.
Yeah. Nice. Well, Rock Thomas, I got one more question for you. This is good. Out of everything you do right now, sounds like a lot. You got a nice balance on things, 35 income streams. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
I'm going to give you 2 answers on that. One is constantly helping people get out of the rat race and live a meaningful life by being their personal best. And that's the work side of me. The flip side is, the love of my life, my woman, and letting her know how grateful I am for what she means to me, what she does, and how she makes me a better version of myself. And I think that by taking care of that primary relationship, you are a role model for your children, no matter what age they are. And that's what I strive to be, as a great father and a great friend and a great husband and a great brother. And so those are my goals.
Nice. That's a good way to end it, big guy. Listen, thank you. People are going to be interested to know, where can they get involved with you? What's the best thing they can do? There's obviously people out there that are looking to get out of that rat race. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Well, they can go to the I Am Movement podcast, and they can listen to some of the people like yourself that I interview. rockthomas.com they can go to and look at all the stuff we have going on. And just, on social media, follow us. We're trying to do as much live and free stuff as we can for people so that they can move the needle wherever they're at. And of course, we have some other courses and things if people want to develop a stronger relationship. And that's about it, man.
Nice. Well, you're doing big things. I'm so glad that we've been connected. Brad Blazer connected you and I appreciate that so much. And I look forward to spending some more time with you. You're a good man, and you're doing big things, and you're an inspiration to lots of people. So thank you for joining Person of Interest.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.